Good morning, everyone. Today we are starting off our Black History Month unit about famous Black Americans with some poetry. We're going to read some poetry in class, and then for your assignment today, I'm going to want you to go to a website, choose your favorite poem, and read it to us. But before we can choose our favorite poem, we're going to learn a little bit about poetry. So grab a paper and pencil if you want to take some notes, and let's get started. Our goal today is to explain how the parts of a text are organized. So in this case, the text that we're going to be looking at are going to be a poem. So let's look at some special things about poems. First, what is a poem? A poem can be a short piece of writing. Usually it's shorter than like a story. It uses a lot of figurative language and imagery, meaning it like makes you really picture what the author is talking about, what the poet is talking about. It's usually rhythmic, kind of like a song. And the words are chosen for their beauty and they're arranged carefully. So even though there's not as many words as a story might have, in a poem, every word is chosen really carefully to make kind of a beautiful piece of writing that makes you like feel something. When we're looking at poems, we're going to be looking at two main things. The stanzas, which is a group of lines forming the basic recurring metrical unit in a poem, which just means, like in writing, there's the paragraph, right, where each paragraph starts on a new line. In a poem, a stanza is basically the paragraph of the poem. You'll see in a minute. And then the lines, same as in a writing. A line is just like the group of words arranged in a row. So when we're referring to parts of a poem, we might refer to the stanza, that paragraph part of the poem, or we might refer to a line, just like in a text, a row of the words. So let's look at those lines and stanzas in two of these poems. On the first one, we have Carrying Our Words by Ophelia Zapata. Let's first just read it and try to think about like the imagery and the figurative language you're hearing and kind of how it makes you feel. So this is how Carrying Our Words goes. It says, we travel carrying our words. We arrive at the ocean with our words we are able to speak of the sounds of thunderous waves. We speak how majestic it is, of the ocean power that gifts us songs. We sing of our respect and call it our relative. It's a really beautiful poem. If we were talking about the poem, we could talk about the stanzas. So right there, in this poem, there's only one stanza. There's no real break in the line. So since all of the lines are together, we just say there is one stanza, and we can talk about specific lines. We could talk about this line, we travel carrying our words. We could talk about what does that mean when she's saying we're carrying our words when we travel. Or this line, with our words, we are able to speak. What does that mean? What do you think she means by saying they're traveling with the words they're able to speak? So when we're referring to the poem, we could talk about the whole thing, this whole stanza, or we could talk about these specific lines. Same for The Crocodile by Lewis Carroll. Again, first we're going to read it. Just think, how does it make you feel? What imagery are you hearing? That's really the point of a poem. The Crocodile. How doth this little crocodile improve his shining tail and pour the waters of the Nile on every golden scale? How cheerfully he seems to grin, how neatly he spreads his claws, and welcomes little fishies in with gently smiling jaws. So again, when we're talking about this poem, we could talk about the stanzas. In this case, there's this stanza, and then you see the space. There are actually two stanzas in this poem, this one and this one. So we could refer to the first stanza or the second stanza if we were talking about the poem. Or we could talk about these lines, how doth the little crocodile, or how neatly spreads his claws. When we're talking about parts of the poem, we're going to use those two types of vocabulary, either the first stanza or the second stanza, or you can talk about each line. That's all for today. We talked about how parts of a text are organized. And in this case, with the poem, we talked about the stanzas, so those kind of paragraphs of the poem, and also the lines, those words that are arranged in a row. Until next time, I'll see you soon.